Last time, we covered the many references in Breath of the Wild's map to the first 4 Zelda games, and we're not even close to finishing all of the Easter eggs that this Hyrule contains. So get out your Sheikah slate as we look at even more secrets to the Breath of the Wild map, this time covering Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, and 4 Swords. We begin with Ocarina of Time, and while this game introduced us to the Goron, the Gerudo, and the Temple of Time, we want to keep the focus on the not-so-obvious references, like Bonooru for instance. This scarecrow is the namesake of Bonooru's stand, and even his friend Pierre is referenced with the Pierre Plateau. Naturally, there's more than just these two. There's the much more obvious Darunia Lake in the Eldin region named after the Goron sage Darunia, and potentially connected to this is Broca Island. Now, we may be thinking too deeply because of its location, but Broca Island could be a reference to how Darunia and the Goron always called Link brother. Again, it's a stretch, but so is Inigo Bridge, which we think could be named after the Lon Lon ranch hand, Ingo. It's close enough that we wanted to put it out there. The next set are pretty obvious though. First is the Jabu Ridge, which has to be named after Jabu Jabu from Ocarina of Time. The same goes for Kapora Pass that takes its name from the informative owl Kapora Gabora. And Lake Saria in the Korok Forest is absolutely named after Link's childhood Kokiri friend and the Sage of the Forest. Just like the Kokiri bully Mido is probably where the name Mido Swamp in the forest comes from. Another sage from Ocarina of Time gets a namesake with Mount Noboru, which is naturally close to the Gerudo Desert. The sage Rauru also has something named after him in Breath of the Wild, the Rauru Hillside. But we can definitely tell the Zora sage Rudo was beloved by her people, as she's the namesake of the Rudo Lake, Rudo Mountain, and Rudo Precipice. One we're not too sure on though is Navi Lake, which could be based on the fairy Navi or just be a complete coincidence. However, we think it's the former if only because the ranch ruins are so obviously based on the decaying remains of the Lon Lon Ranch. But those are all the references we could find to Ocarina of Time. So let's move on to Majora's Mask, where naturally some of the callbacks are to the masks. The first is Breman Peak, which, although spelled differently, is probably a reference to the Breman Mask that allowed Link to control small animals. Then there's Garo Pond, which we believe refers back to Don Garo in his Frog Choir, and naturally there was the Don Garo Mask. The rest of the locations are Easter eggs related to the characters you meet in that game, though some are a bit shaky. First up is Cape Cressia, which may be a reference to Cremia, though that is mainly a guess on our part. But it would be weird if it wasn't about her, since Breath of the Wild has a location called the Romani Plains. Now this could just be a reference to the Romani Ranch, since it's close to the ranch ruins, but there is also Cremia's younger sister, Romani. It's a throwback to one of the two at the very least. Continuing on, there's Goro Cove, which seems like a generic reference to the Goron, but we think it's specifically toward Link the Goron, who often ended his sentences with Goro. And speaking of Goron, there's Lake Darman, which is likely a send-up of Darmani, the Goron hero of Majora's Mask. But there's more than just Goron Easter eggs from the game. There's plenty of Zora references too, mainly in the form of members from the Indiegogo's. There's lead singer Lulu with Lulu Lake, lead guitarist Macau with Macau Lake, and the manager of the band Toto with Toto Lake. The one reference we're not really sure of is Tafei Hill. On the surface, it doesn't seem to be related to anything, but it does remind us of Kafei from Majora's Mask. Whether it's meant to be a reference though, we're not sure. Let's return to the handheld adventures of Link now with Oracle of Ages and Seasons Easter eggs. First up, Oracle of Ages, and one of the bigger callbacks is Brenna Plain, which seems to be a shortened version of the land where Ages takes place, Labrynna. There's also the Forest of Time, which is where Link starts his adventure in this Game Boy game. Finally, there's Yambi Lake, and though it may be a stretch, it could be related to Queen Ambi from Oracle of Ages. But there seems to be more references to Oracle of Seasons. There's the Lodrum Headland, which seems to be a shortened version of Holodrum, the land where seasons took place, but there's also the Horon Lagoon, which is a send-up of Horon Village, the central location in the game. Continuing on, there's the Samasa Plain, which is likely a reference to the Samasa Desert, and Tarm Point, which calls back to the Tarm Ruins in Seasons. A lot of the locations from these games are essentially just lifted into Breath of the Wild. The last one though is, again, a potential stretch, but we have Maple Ridge, which could be related to the apprentice witch Maple. It's difficult to say whether this is intentional or not, but the potential is there. The next reference is the only one that might serve as a callback to Four Swords, the Talus Plateau. There was a location in the multiplayer game called the Talus Cave, but with how Talus serve as mini-bosses in Breath of the Wild, it's much more likely that the plateau is named after them. Still, we wanted to give it at least a little love. And there's still a lot more love to give, as the next part will cover the rest of the Zelda references, all the way from the Wind Waker to Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Triforce Heroes, and everything in between. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more on Zelda and other things gaming.